Microdose, yeah. Microdose. Microdose. Microdose, dose, dose. Microdose. Microdose, dose, dose. Microdose. Microdose, dose, dose.
Oh my god, I'm such a dork. I didn't fucking hit the record button. And I was like,
Kush.
something's wrong here.
Yeah. Mid-flow. Oh. It's all good.
We're going to explain to the audience that happened, and then I'm just going to do some static, and yeah.
But that's Kush, and I'm Kai. I'm filling in for Robin, but no, we're chatting with Greg LoPiccolo.
And like you said, we're chatting with Greg LoPiccolo. He's the creator developer of Guitar Hero and Rock Band. I have personal obsessions with both those games. Kai, you have a history with the rest of his catalog.
Thief, for sure.
What else did you mention in this episode?
Thief was huge. I loved Amplitude, and the gentleman has he did the music or the score for System Shock and Descent and Frequency. So he just was all over my late 90s gaming footprint. I didn't realize how much of a relationship I had with this gentleman, but there it is.
It's nice when those sneak up on you. And then we talk about that. We talk about his new project, ToneStone.com. And we talk about the positivity that the Guitar Heroes and the rock bands had on society in our time. And there's a lot of fun in this. There's some warm-hearted stories, and we're going to go to that now, tuning in as it's happening.
I've had a relationship with you that I didn't even know about going back years. So thank you for joining us. So much praise and love.
Well, that's very flattering. Thanks very much. A lot of that stuff was a really long time ago.
I remember. You have a fantastic resume. You've done some work. Thief, the other game Kai mentioned. You've done Guitar Hero. You've done Rock Band, two of my personal favorites. You've actually got actual rock and roll experience. You were a part of a band called Tribe, going between the mid '80s to mid '90s. But you have a new thing on tap here. It's called ToneStone, and it's a developing an accessible platform for musical creation. What can you tell us about that, please?
So ToneStone is going to be in limited release on Steam in about a month.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to start handing out keys. And it basically kind of picks up where Rock Band left off, where, I could talk about it for a very long time, and maybe I will, but the upshot is, loved working on Guitar Hero and Rock Band, super proud of those games, but got to a point where it was like what I really wanted to do was work on something that gave people the ability to create their own music, like that you still was grounded in gameplay and sort of game design principles, but that would let people kind of like strike their own, forge their own path into their own musical creativity, which turns out is really hard. So it took a while to kind of figure out, what kind of design approach to take. But for the last 3 years or so, I've been chipping away at this startup, and I have this awesome team. Bunch of ex-harmonics people, a lot of ex-Looking Glass people, cool. Including Tom Leonard, who was the lead programmer on Thief, actually.
Sweet.
Among other people. And so that's what we're working on. We're working on this platform. It's basically for people who want to make music and don't have skills, but can make, can navigate a video game, and so like they kind of meet you where you are, and you step up and you kind of like work your way up the chain, and you come out the other side and you can like write songs and perform them.
Is there a demo on YouTube at all? I went on ToneStone.com, and I saw very limited information there.
It's pretty stealthy, but that's going to change in the next few weeks. Like we're going to actually start giving out keys, and there'll be videos and so forth. It's pretty far along, actually. It's not done, but it works well enough. You can make music with it at this point. I'm super proud of it.
So this is going to be. This is going to be bigger than like a Garage Band or what we use to edit this show, SoundForge, or is it something completely different entirely?
It's completely different because it sits in I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like it, because it sort of sits at the intersection of music creation and gameplay, where it's like, because I've been using digital music tools kind of all my life, all the way back to the Tribe days. Like it was I got a Mac Plus in 1989 or whatever they came out, and when using sequencers and samplers and all that kind of stuff, which is like awesomely powerful, but the user interfaces and that stuff are sort of impenetrable. They're just like, they're basically crafted to be like, studio gear, like mixing consoles and so forth, which most people can't relate to. It's not a musical way of thinking. So basically a lot of the work has been just taking the fundamentals of digital audio production and music production and refashioning them in a way where you could hook gameplay up to them. So it's like the right size and shape componentry so that you could kind of parse it in a game context. And then the game part is, much more straightforward, because there's lots of people in the world who know how to design, really good at designing video games.
But I just wanted to know, because I mean, in the game sense, other than like popularity, is there a competitive part to this?
Not necessarily. No, it's the part that's really kind of comes from games is like the flow state, right? Because a lot of people played Rock Band non-competitively, right? You just get together with your friends and you drink and you kind of create songs together, so it's a little bit more of that vibe. It's like I suppose you could apply any number of mechanics to it. You can make it competitive, but that's not the part of it I think that we're most interested in. For us, it's like getting people into that gamey flow state where you just got stuff coming at you and you're making decisions, but instead of you racking up headshots or what have you, it's music is just taking shape as you make these little decisions in a kind of in a game flow.
Was that your focus in university, where you focused on how computers and music are obviously going to sync up at some point and that's the future, or is this all an accident?
No, weirdly, yes. That's kind of how it kicked off for me. Is like, and this was like early 80s. I was like a German major. I did, and wasn't really very musically focused. And the school that I went to, they had an Apple II and some D to A converters that somebody had just built, plugged into a modular synth. And I just kind of stumbled into an elective course, and I was like, oh my God, you could. So in other words, if you don't know how to play, you can program the computer to drive the synthesizer and it'll play what you want it to play. I was like, this is amazing. I was like completely captivated by that concept. And I was like, I'm doing this, like this is what I'm going to do, and then, got out of school and went to Boston, and that was not like something you could earn a living doing or anything. So then I got a bass and I got into a band and I kind of went that direction for a while. But yeah, like very early on, it was like, oh, computers plus synthesizers, you could use this to make music. And then 30 years later, like now it's true. Took a while.
Tell us about Tribe.
Oh yeah.
So let's see. I don't know. I was living in Allston, Massachusetts, which is kind of like gritty suburb of Boston where like all the students live. And my neighbor played guitar and he had a reel-to-reel recorder, and we started playing together, and just one thing led to another, and we just kind of continued to accumulate people and started a band, because that's like in 1983, 4, 5 in Boston, like that's kind of what you did, right? There was like tons of young people, and there was a lot of bands. It was like a lot of ferment. It was like Pixies and Throwing Muses and Mission to Burma, and a lot of cool stuff. And so I just got involved with that and then worked on this band, and we kind of rose through the ranks slowly, got better. We were a pretty big band in Boston for a while, and we got a record deal and toured the country, and then that's as far as it went. Like most bands, right? We never quite made it to sort of national prominence. We had our shot at it, and then moved on to other things.
But you still toured the nation. Like that's pretty impressive, man. Like I used to be involved in pro wrestling, and the furthest it ever got me was George Washington Gorge, which is just below Canada. And,
okay.
Yeah. But, I was just like, how the hell did I end up here? This is amazing. Also, look at this giant hole in the ground. What the fuck? What would you say was your favorite tour, your favorite performance?
We did a tour. We opened for the Psychedelic Furs. We did like a, full, Canada, continental United States. And it was like, the true, it's like in the van every day, next city, sound check, do the show, back to the hotel. And it was, I loved it. Like I could have spent another decade doing that. It was so much fun. It was like, because you didn't have to worry about anything in life other you had like a show to play, And that was all that anybody needed from you. You know, the rest of the time you were just eating, reading, traveling. It was awesome.
Can I ask you a question? I just saw the documentary on Netflix about the Isabella Gardner museum theft.
Yeah. Yep.
There was a guy in there who was in, I forget the gentleman's name, but there's a few pictures of him in the local like night scene, like one of the main suspects. Like he was in a band then. Do you remember the heist happening at the time? Like, was that when it was in the paper?
Totally do. Yeah, I haven't. I'm familiar with the documentary, but I haven't watched it yet. I got to sit down and like sit through it because maybe it's somebody I would recognize. I don't know.
For sure.
But no, it was big news. It was huge, right? It was like, it was a big deal.
Now, during Tribe, is there a day job involved?
Oh, it was a bunch of them. Yeah, I sold hi-fi for a number of years. And then I was actually like a pro audio salesman. Like we drive around New England and like, you know, sell like mixing consoles and studio monitors and stuff like that. And
how
then
do you get plugged into Harmonix?
It started by getting plugged into Looking Glass, which was the, you know, developer that made Thief and System Shock and so forth. Where I had a friend that worked there, and I went and had lunch with him one day. And the people, they were just starting System Shock, that team, and they knew my band. You know, they had seen my band and so forth. And so I was introduced, and they were like, well, you know, would you ever consider doing, you know, game music? And at that point, we had no money, you know, and I was like, well, you know, for pay, yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Right.
And so they hired me, you know, as a contractor to do the score for System Shock, and then they needed sound effects. And then they went to CD-ROM. That was one of the first CD-ROM games. And they had, I don't know if you know that game very well, but it's actually BioShock, you know, borrowed a lot from that game, including this concept of the audio logs, where it's like you'd pick up these audio logs and be somebody's like, I'm trapped in the maintenance locker and the, you know, like all these little kind of narrative vignettes. And so they hired me to do those. So I went around the whole company and cast, you know, all the employees to be different, you know, characters in System Shock, and then like I did all the audio processing for Shodan, the villain, and so, who was actually the keyboard player in the band in Tribe. She's Shodan.
Nice.
So anyway, so I, you know, started doing that because it was like, it's totally lucky, right? I just happened to be right place at the right time and did that. And then the band broke up like maybe a year later. And I went to Looking Glass and I was like, you people really need a full-time sound person. They were like, you start tomorrow. And then that was my job for a while. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up working on Thief. And then I got recruited out of Looking Glass to go work at Harmonix because there were some other people had jumped over from Looking Glass to Harmonix. And so they hired me there to basically run product development, which I did for a long time.
Where does the idea for Guitar Hero come from?
The idea, I mean, to be perfectly candid, the idea from Guitar Hero, like many things, comes from Japan, where there was a game called Guitar Freaks, which was a rhythm action game with a little plastic guitar with like, you know, 3 buttons. And we had already made frequency and amplitude as sort of our response to Japanese rhythm action. And they didn't do very well. Like we were super proud of them, and they were like, you know, critically well received, but they didn't sell. And then there was this company called Red Octane who had actually had good success making replacement dance pads for Dance Dance Revolution.
Like you do.
And they had a manufacturing connection in China, and they were doing very well. And they approached us because we were just big enough, you know, in the video game development circles. We were like the music game developer, you know, we're still tiny. And they approached us and said, like, if we sourced plastic guitars from China, would you do the software? And we're like, yes, we would. And a lot of the development staff at Harmonix at that point was, you know, people in bands or just been out of bands. It was very sort of rock and roll centric. We were like, we're going to do a, you know, rock and roll game. We're going to introduce people to rock and roll, you know, and that's what happened. But it was basically the original idea, like was not ours. It was Guitar Freaks.
Even with the homage, let's say, do you guys know that you're on the cusp of something like huge, or is this like, well, this is just another job, and we hope people like it?
Well, we went through this whole we worked really hard on frequency, and we're like, this is amazing. This is going to be a huge hit. We were very confident, and then it wasn't. You know, it was hard. Well, people didn't know what it was. They couldn't figure it out. There was nothing quite like it. It's held up pretty well in retrospect. But Sony was very gracious, and like they thought it was good, and so they basically said, well, let's have another crack at it. So they gave us another development deal, and we did Amplitude, which was a refined version of the same thing. And then that didn't sell. And then they're like, all right, well, this really isn't working out. So then we did some karaoke games for Konami. And those sold pretty well enough to kind of keep the franchise going. But we were pretty, sort of battered by that point. We were starting to understand, how all that works. And so then when we built Guitar Hero, we liked it. We thought it was good, but we had no sense of whether anybody else would like it or not. So no, we had no idea.
What was it like approaching labels to try and get this music? Because that seems like the stickiest wicket is like, hey, no, we'll license the songs.
It was rough, and there was a lot of songs you couldn't get, so there was a lot of like rejections. But the first Guitar Hero and most of the second, if I recall, we just licensed the publishing, right? We didn't license the master recordings. And then there was this studio in the Bay Area who did a really terrific job of sound-alikes. They would find somebody who sounded like David Bowie or somebody that would sound like Ozzy or whatever. And they do these note-for-note sound-alikes, which are like pretty good, actually. You can tell it's not but they're close. And that was
also
all
why
the
song was introduced, known by so and so, as opposed
exactly
to
the wording. Yes, it's like as made famous by
specific.
Black Sabbath. And so it was easier to get the publishing than it was to get the master recordings. It wasn't until Rock Band where like they had some momentum in the marketplace, and we had like the backing of like Viacom and so forth, where then we were able to actually go and get master recordings and have them bounce down the stems and prep them and so forth.
Yeah, I would imagine it got easier because, for a time, it was just like just hearing like more and more things being downloadable or available. I would imagine, other groups came and approached. I know that, the Beatles and Green Day had their own editions, but were there any other like specific bands that like almost had one or like approached about something?
Yes. Let's see.
Who's willing? You're just like, I hope we get these guys, and then it's just like,
I don't think I'm trying to think, like, can I get in trouble for telling these stories because it was a long time ago? Does anybody even care anymore? I suspect not. I will say that we went hard at Led Zeppelin, and we were psyched for that, and we got pretty far, and at the end, and then if we ever got there, so, but it was not
even with
for
the
lack
publishing?
of trying. Well, it was like for the Beatles, certainly, or for Green Day, it's like the band had to be into it, right? It's like if the band was into it, then all the other stuff could be worked out. And in their case, we never got them over the finish line, So
yeah, that Led Zeppelin one would have been cool. I mean, what was it like playing outside in Rock Band for the first time? Did you? Maybe you did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I must have. Sure. Well, I was psyched that it was in there, but the band was long gone at that point, so we just kind of this like nostalgic thing. It's like, hey, we had there was only a few songs that we had the masters for, and that was one of them. It's like, oh, let's throw it in there.
Was there a rule about like which songs absolutely wouldn't work? Like, was there a tempo component or like just a number of parts or something?
Yes. So there was a lot that went into it. There was like, and we got better at it over time. And, and we made a lot of things work, particularly like if you were going to do, sometimes we do an entire album or something, and then you'd have to make everything work. And some of them wouldn't play that well because it was just like a vocal and acoustic guitar, or there's no drums or whatever. But yeah, there was certainly, some things worked amazingly well and other things didn't,
Were there any songs that you like tried to make work, but it was too weird? Because I mean, I noticed like the Moody Blues aren't on there, and I would jam on some nights in White Satin.
No, we could have made that work.
Yeah.
No, usually if there's something in there that, that you're like, why isn't this in Rock Band or Guitar Hero? It's because you couldn't get the licensing, like almost certainly, for whatever reason, but usually it was because the original artist, sometimes they had passed and their estate didn't want to deal with it. And sometimes they were just like, they weren't into it. It wasn't part of what they wanted to do, which is, it's fine.
What happened with the transition from Guitar Hero to Rock Band, how did that become a thing?
Well, there was a business kind of story and a creative story.
Interesting.
The creative story was pretty simple. It's like, as soon as like Guitar Hero got some legs, we were like, oh, this is going to work. We were like immediately like, oh, we should do a whole band. You know, it was not like, it was obvious idea, right? It was like, oh, we just add bass and drums and vocals and then from a business perspective, so we worked with this publisher, Red Octane, because they were the people who made the guitars and so forth. And the way that game deals work and still work to a great degree, but things have changed to some degree. But in those days, you would be the developer and you would get a contract. It's kind of like making a record. You get an advance to make this game, and then the publisher would publish it and you get royalties against it. But depending on how the deal was done, usually the publisher would own the intellectual property. So the logo and the name and all that stuff. In our case, we had a deal where we got to keep the code. So we got to own our code base, but we never owned the Guitar Hero brand. And then when it blew up, they got bought by Activision. And Activision, and we had a pretty, decent, I would say a fair deal with Red Octane, who treated us great and we had a great relationship with. But they just got bought, by Activision, and Activision didn't really want to perpetuate the deal. And we were getting courted by all these other giant publishers. And then basically Viacom came in and bought us. And we were like, well, we'd like to make this other game, Rock Band, with the other instruments. And so then we just started working on that. And then we were basically in competition with Guitar Hero for 4 or 5 years, which was weird.
What's that like?
Yeah,
What's it like fighting your son?
It was weird because we, poured a lot of love into that franchise, particularly to try to get all the characters the way we wanted them to be, because it was like, this big it was tongue in cheek, right? It was like, there was a lot of satire and so forth, it was a lot of inside jokes, but it was really from a place of love, and passion. And we were disappointed in some of the choices that they made, It's like by Rock Band 3, there was like Buick ads in it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's like, but I don't know. It was a crazy time for sure. Because every year it's like we were putting something out, they were putting something out, and we had to re-up. They got Aerosmith. No, yeah, they got Aerosmith, and then we got Green Day, and then we got the Beatles. It was went back and forth. It was fun. Actually, it was fun.
From a fan perspective, what was the wildest thing you had heard about in a positive sense? Now, I've got one that one-ups everything with my Rock Band experience, but my Guitar Hero experience is bars in the Haight-Ashbury were actually having Guitar Hero night. Come on down, play some Xbox, learn Guitar Hero, and PBR is $1. Like that. That's what I'm talking about.
I think I'd say 2. And they were both kind of themes as opposed to maybe, like specific things. One of them is we would get fan mail and so forth. And there was a thread of fan mail from people who had autistic kids.
Wow.
And they were like, my autistic kid, I can do this with my autistic kid. And thank you,
Amazing.
That's awesome.
And that was like, wow. Okay. We were kind of proud of that, or, I don't get along with my teenage kid, but we do this. It's like we don't speak, but he plays drums and I play guitar, and we can do that. No, it's and really meaningful to people. Just the fact that people would bond musically, and then the other thing that I will say I'm super proud of is we had tons of people saying I played this game for a year and then I went and got a guitar and now I'm in a band.
That's the story.
Like a lot of people cool. Jumped over into real instruments, and that was cool. The fact that happened.
Were there any other musical instruments in consideration? You know what I mean? Like that were prototypes, like flute, maybe tambourine, maybe like.
Well, we did a keyboard for Rock Band 3.
Oh, that's right.
And we put a ton of work into it. And it's really quite good. And not that many people it was not successful. I think the kind of by then things. Well, it didn't sell. But we did it, and I'm really proud of that too. It was we did an awesome job on it. Lots of other stuff discussed, but really it was we were trying to be a mass market thing, and bass is same as guitar. That was easy. Drums were hard. That was an enormous amount of work, and vocals were. We actually had that mechanic from the karaoke games, so we already had kind of figured out how to score a pitch, and so forth. Yeah, that was it.
I was always intimidated by the drums because in the fun fantasy element of like pretending you're guitaring, you got that, singing, you're moving around. Whatever I was doing did not resemble drumming. It was always like darting around. But when you got your friend who was a drummer to do it, you're like, man, look at this.
Yeah, well, it's like one of the things that was cool is like the guitar and bass were, not really, had very limited connection to actually playing those instruments, right? It's just buttons and a little pad. The drums, if you get good at Rock Band drums, you can sit down in front of a drum kit and kind of play drums, like with terrible technique, right? Because like you didn't learn the fundamentals, right? But you can, like the kick, snare, hat, independent limb coordination part worked. You could basically learn how to play drums, as Alex, the CEO, learned to play drums in Rock Band, and then I was in a band with him for a few years. Nice. He was the drummer.
I think Guitar Hero and the aforementioned Rock Band, I think they're the most perfect games ever developed. I'm not trying to be kind or extra anything. I believe this with all my heart. I fell in love with Guitar Hero when I found out I finally got a PS4 and I picked up Rock Band 4. Like, I became obsessed with everything. Again, there's no violence in it. Swearing is whatever, but it's at a minimum. You can play this with your kids. You can play this with your roommate. Many problems that I had with my roommate were resolved just over a night of Rock Band. If I needed an hour off from my studies, I could just hang out with him and just play some Guitar Hero. At one point, Rock Band Rivals becomes a thing. I'm investing like 12 hours a day, not a lie. Like I'm putting CBD oil on my wrists. I've even get booked as a 5th member of a rock band, and we play WonderCon at San Jose in like 2017, 2018. And they paid me real money. It was the most bizarre. At first, I thought it was an official thing. No, it's just these guys in San Jose. They had their own little band night. They needed someone else to like help break people during the WonderCon.
So it sounds like you got skills then.
You know what, man? I do not try to prove anything. I play medium. I don't give a fuck.
Oh, okay.
I just play medium, and I have a great time when I need to. It's a great release for me. Just you're just playing music. You're just drinking some booze, maybe a cigarette's involved. Not for me much these days, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, it's totally, a great release. Again, it's Rock Band.
That was that was a big deal for us. I think we felt fortunate that we got to work on something that was like, basically positive.
Yes,
it was creative and celebratory. That was a pretty big deal for the team. That we got to do that.
And again, anyone can play, like you said. Mode. Autistic children are getting involved. Dads are bonding with their sons. People are actually inspired to pick up the real guitar and now play. This is an amazing game, man, and thank you so much for developing it.
Well, my pleasure. I had a lot of fun working on it, and the teams that worked on those games were really special. It was like a special group of people. It really was a joy, which is not always true for development. Sometimes it's a kind of slog, but those were really they were fun to make. No question.
Well, I'm like, my mind's racing now for like just the interfaces for ToneStone. I'm really excited to see that one come out. Just the amount of possibilities there. Gosh, like what my daughter has access to now is bonkers. Like she went skipping by one day and she's like, I'm going to the Lil Nas X concert in Roblox with my friends. It's like, what? But just, the connectivity part of it. Like, is it going to be a connected to other people experience, or is it more of a solo, like you're focusing on your jam kind of a thing?
So right now it's set up so that you can like make a song, link your Discord account. You can share it to Discord, in our server. And if somebody else like responds to it, it'll pull it in to their app and they can remix it. Gotcha. So you can basically trade back and forth, in this pretty elegant way. Long term, we really see it as being collaborative, performative. Like you get on a session, like an online session, you bring your deck, they bring their deck, you build a song together. It's got visuals, you stream it on Twitch, that's like, that would be actually like, our plan is to actually develop it to the point where people can really perform live, that you can just like lay down songs in real time, and the part that I think we're most excited about is the multiplayer. That seems like it'll be awesome.
That seems so cool. What is it like at the intersection of people then with all these powerful and interesting tools recreating songs that already exist?
Well, they'll probably do some of that. I mean, it's just like any other licensed music. It's, you're not allowed to do it.
Right.
And if you stream it, it'll probably get pulled down, But
right.
I mean, I imagine it's not really built for that. It's really built to make your own kinds of music. But obviously, people are going to do that.
Of course.
Is there a retail price for ToneStone?
We're still working out the details, but it'll basically, the core app will be free.
Okay.
And then to unlock like the kind of fancy extra features, it'll probably be $8-10 a month, so a subscription. But but a lot of the business we expect to come from because basically the way that you make music is you have these clips, which are not unique to us, like Ableton or lots of other music software uses clips as well. But in our case, the clips, we're setting up a marketplace for some indie musicians to make their own clips and sell them in the store, but with their brand. So basically, it's almost like buying magic cards, Cool. So it's not. So basically, the clips you get, they have musical utility. They're like organ licks or guitar licks or drum loops or whatever, but they have the original artist identity baked into them. So you buy them, and then if you build a song and share it with somebody else, all that branding goes with, So it's really an opportunity for indie musicians to kind of get known.
Oh, that's diabolical.
No, it's pretty cool, and it's not just sounds. It's like DSP effects, like reverb and delay and distortion and so forth. Like there's a huge inventory of different kinds of, not just static clips like drum loops or whatever, but even like arpeggiators, like musical tools that you can kind of crank out your own sounds and you can make your own clips. But it's really intended as this like user generated ecosystem for people to start at the, it really very much like Roblox, right? Roblox, like, crush this, right? Where you've got like, 9-year-olds playing games, and then you've got teenagers, pumping out entire games and selling it to younger kids and so forth. So very much modeled on that, as a sort of a marketplace for indie musicians to kind of, sell stuff.
Do you still play games recreationally?
Somewhat, not as much as I used
to. Any current favorites?
I'm starting to get into Sea of Thieves. Which
cool.
Is pretty zen. Actually, a bunch of the dev team is, it's a good like zen thing that we like cruise around and
for sure, yeah.
pirate. I stumbled sideways into this little game called Dwarf Romantic, which actually has a little bit of design overlap with ToneStone. That's on Steam. Settlers of Catan. It's kind of like that, but I don't know how to describe it. You should buy it. It's awesome.
Check that out.
It's a very chill game. I don't play any kind of like hardcore mainstream games anymore. I used to, but now basically I just work all the time.
What would you say is the hardest game on Rock Band currently?
You mean like hardest like song?
Most difficult, no matter if you're playing at medium or expert, just like you specifically went like they're always going to miss this note here.
Well, so that kind of went in a direction, where it's like, mostly metal, right? It's, I would say, with a few exceptions, like all the Who Keith Moon drum parts are super challenging because he never played 2 bars the same. It's like you have to like learn the entire thing. Every bar is unique, and it was also really like authoring that stuff was rough. But I'm not that involved with it anymore. But the whole rock band scene now is like there's a lot of people who still do it, and a lot of them are really really skilled, and they play a lot of metal. And so that that end of it is like, but like I can't play any of that stuff. Like I'm sort of like sort of upper tier hard, lower tier expert. Like that's as far as I ever got,
But too many times I've seen expert, I've seen hard, and it's just this flood of notes, and it's just my fingers. There's no way my fingers are going to do that and not break. It's just we can only do so much, and we should have fun.
Some people are into it, like some, it's like, and more power to them. But I never got to that point where it's like, there's that weird thing where the visuals are coming in and you're not even thinking about it. You're just like your spinal cord is just sending the impulses right to your fingers, and you're just like, and it's like, but I never really learned to do that. That's a special thing.
I almost beat the breaking wheel on expert. I just
there you go. Okay, yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Almost.
What would you say
beat
is
the
your most
breaking wheel.
satisfying song?
What is some satisfying song? Let's see. Gee, good question. All the Abbey Road stuff on the Beatles
Okay.
is pretty great. And those visuals and stuff, just the craft of that was, that's like super special, I think. I think that's, I'm trying to think what else. Like, yeah, I think that's my answer. I think, yeah, the late Beatles stuff I thought was amazing.
Kai, I know it's been a long time since you picked up a Rock Band game. Anything that stood out to you? What's your favorite?
I mean, when it got into you could just have this like thousands of songs in the catalog. Like I definitely just enjoyed the variety there. But no, some of my fondest memories are like, I remember getting an exercise bike and parking it in front of the TV, and that was just the best. Like just guitar and cycling was just the best.
That's great.
That was my thing for a while.
Better than smoking cigarettes.
Doing that.
Like you said, man, thousands of songs, dude. I only have 327 songs. I'm currently on version 2.3.3, and when I went to check this information, the PS4 threatened me with a version 2.20. I disconnected the PS4 from the internet a long time ago because I got tired of its patches. I was just like, I don't need this to play Blu-rays better. It's fine the way it is.
Sure. Yeah.
I can tell you my number one song at 48 plays is Fat Bottom Girls.
Yeah.
And then there's a huge deficit where it's a three-way tie. 37 plays for Light Up the Night by Proto Men, Shadow by Bearstronauts, and the Bee Gees' Tragedy.
Nice.
I don't know how this happened, but that was
actually, I've got like, it's coming back to me. One other one I will give a shout out to is like all of the drum parts in the Stone Temple Pilots songs.
Oh, wow.
I spent a long time like learning those because they were like on the edge of my ability to do them, and they were really cool parts, and like those were like super fun.
Sweet.
Man, my obsession went so far as like, despite the fact knowing like there's no space in this room for drums, I still bought drums. Okay. And then tried it out for 2 days and I was just like, this is not working. Also, I don't know why this sensor is 2 millimeters. I'm not able to hit this. I'm only hitting the outside of the plastic because I'm just a monkey at this point, going up and down.
Yeah.
I would end up slapping some fancy luchador stickers that matched up with the colors, and then somehow tripled my money on eBay.
What like by selling the drums, or
I resold the drums like a year later for triple the money just because I added $3 worth of stickers to it.
That's
nice. That's a solid market.
All that hardware is expensive now because there's
because
it's all breaking, slowly, and there's no more coming. So
there's only X amount has been made. I learned that with the PS3 editions, I want to say. Like, and the PS2s, like at one point I was just like, I'm missing some Rock Band or Guitar Hero here. I need my PS2 to have that. And sure enough, like if it does exist and it does work, it's like hundreds of dollars for this thing that they stopped making 5 years ago. Like,
yeah. No, at some point, that might be it for for Guitar Hero and Rock Band. When the last plastic I've actually got I got a couple sealed boxes just sitting.
I also picked up 2 used guitars myself for Rock Band PS4 as opposed to rivals, but they both connect to the same console and play all the same songs. So I've got 2 on standby, and I love this game that you created, sir. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for playing it. It was a blast to make. I'm super proud of it. It was a fun part of my life. Put it that way.
Mm-hmm. There's a little serendipity here. So I sent this request out to you a couple months ago.
And I never saw it because I don't ever look at my,
I'm the same way. I get an idea of like, I want 5 or 6 people to talk to. I send something out, they come back or they don't. Super happy to have you come back to me. But when you did, 12 hours prior, I had the Barely Functional Gamers from Twitch TV as a guest of this show. And I challenged them to a Rock Band event, and I was like, hey guys, let's get together on your thing in a couple weeks. Maybe we can raise some money for charity, but I just want to play Rock Band with some people, and let's do it on your platform. And they agreed. And then 12 hours later, you replied. I feel like this is serendipity. I don't believe this was an accident. You're in Massachusetts. I don't, if there's any way you could help us, like even maybe a simple tweet when we get this finalized, could you be a part of that in somehow?
Sure, just reach out. That's fine.
That's what's up.
Yeah, happy to.
All right. Greg LoPiccolo, you ToneStone.com. It's going to debut in a couple months.
Like really a few weeks, you know.
Wow.
Like so it'll be on Steam. It'll be in private beta, but you can go to the website and request a code, and we will, you know, I think we're going to start shipping out codes, and we're looking to get feedback from people. We really want to see what people think, and then we'll start to basically modify it and evolve it based on what kind of feedback we get. Super excited about it, though.
Well, you can count on my email being in that that list here. There you go.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks.
Kai, what do you want to plug?
Oh, if I could check out Kush and Kai, we did Limitless with Jamil Hemphill, or as I call it, Cocaine the Movie. So that was a fun one.
Yeah, Limitless just dropped the other day, last week actually. But this June 30th for the Kick-Ass Movie Podcast, me and director Len Kabazinski, we're talking about Jeff Speakman's The Perfect Weapon. That's going to be on June 30th. And then also check me out on the independent Waffle Box Pod with Mike Fish. Those drop every Wednesday, once a week. This has been a fantastic episode. Guys, thank you so much for both of you being a part of this. For
Thanks
Greg
so much for having
LoPiccolo, I've been Kush Hayes.
I'm Kai. Thanks for coming, Greg.
You've been you.
Microdose, 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 yeah, microdose.
From the BosNet family.
Oh my God, I'm such a dork.